Hi, I'm David Kinnaman, president of Barna Group, and we're here launching this brand new study called the UK Church in Action in partnership with World Vision UK. This groundbreaking new study looks at a variety of different factors about how the church is deployed in mission in our context today. In this fourth session, we want to take a look at the ways both churchgoers and church leaders think about partnership. So what we looked at in this research is a wide range of ways in which churchgoers and leaders say they would like to be equipped for mission in the world. There are 8 different ways that we asked. Let me just show you some of those. Financially supporting organizations and charities that perform mission and social justice activities globally. That was the most common way that both churchgoers and church leaders told us that they would like to be equipped for mission in the world. You can see the way we asked this question among church leaders was, how does your church prioritize different ways of doing mission? And the way we asked active Christians was, what activities should your church prioritize when doing global mission? You can see on your screens here some of the different results that we asked. And what's interesting to me is if we look at both the top rated suggestions and then the second half of that list, in almost every case, churchgoers are more likely than church leaders to tell us that they would like to see these kinds of partnership opportunities offered to them. And so churchgoers are telling us they're interested in the church being deployed across a wider range of issues and being more informed in a variety of ways than churches are often doing. So I think these findings tell us as church leaders that churchgoers are interested in us providing a range of different exposure to them around the mission and opportunities for us to be deployed in mission for the sake of Christ. Another key finding from the research looks at whether churchgoers give to just their church or just to charities or to both or to neither. And this is one of the common perceptions that church leaders have, is that if we are too involved with an outside charity, that somehow that might take away from some of the funding that's available to us as a local church, that people might give their pounds to the charity and not to us as a church. What we find, in fact, is that very few active Christians seem to be very discreet in their giving. In fact, you can see when you compare, so only 3% say that they prefer to give only to their church, and only 2% say they prefer to give only to a Christian charity. And you can see that most respondents, most active Christians here in the UK, are willing to give to both, and they see their giving as a very integrated whole. This is something that I think is very important, and we find this across a whole variety of different studies in our work, that the more you care, the more you care. The more you give, the more places you give. And so we shouldn't think of this as a zero-sum game, that we're in competition for the resources of active Christians. In fact, we think that partnering with charities, the research seems to indicate, actually helps people care across a wider variety of issues and causes. So when we think about partnership for the future, what could we do as church leaders to evaluate our efforts? Well, the first thing to say is that if we try to do too much, sometimes that can actually dilute our influence, and it might even harm the witness of the church. So we see many churches stretched too thin, doing too many things, signing up for the great needs that they perceive, but maybe not being qualified to meet all of those needs. So one of the first questions we could ask ourselves is, are we doing too much? And I've listed a few questions here for you to consider. What's working best? What's not working very well? And are there any things that we should stop doing? Listen, there are other churches in your community here in this country that maybe are doing the kinds of things that you're doing only moderately well, much better. And so let's let them sign on for the things that they're more qualified to do and get really clear about the things you're doing really, really well. And in what ways can you partner with other churches and organizations and charities, other ministries, to be able to deliver mission more effectively? This isn't about being efficient and just really, really good and professional about it. We ought to lead with our hearts, but we ought to do that with the kind of quality and effectiveness that Jesus asks of us as Christians. We should then look at all of these things and say, okay, what is God actually calling us to do? And how can we be most appropriately aligned with his purposes in the world? Again, this is research that should drive us to be more clear about what God is asking us to do and how we can join him in that mission. And so it's our pleasure as Barna researchers to join a group like World Vision UK to try to help you think about your current context and what you might be called to do as a church. This is the fourth of our 5 sessions, and in our final session, we'll take a holistic look at some of the things we've learned from this research and what it might mean for us as churches here in the UK.